The nascent state of Israel, forged in the crucible of conflict, found itself perpetually under the shadow of existential threats. Its very birth was contested, its borders porous, and its neighbors often hostile. In these early, tumultuous decades, survival was not merely a goal. It was the bedrock of national identity. Conventional warfare offered only partial solutions, and the nascent intelligence community quickly realized that traditional espionage, while vital, was insufficient to safeguard a nation constantly teetering on the precipice. The regional conflicts were not just skirmishes. They were battles for existence, demanding ingenuity and an unwavering will to endure. Out of this profound necessity, the Mossad emerged, a clandestine organization born from the understanding that unconventional warfare, often waged in the shadows, would be their most potent shield. Yet initially, their methods were grounded in the established practices of the era: human intelligence, clandestine meetings, and the painstaking gathering of information through daring agents. These were brave men and women, risking everything for their homeland. But their bravery alone could not overcome the inherent limitations of human-centric intelligence gathering. The world was changing, and the threats were evolving faster than their traditional capabilities could adapt. A growing unease settled within the upper echelons of the Mossad. Whispers began of exploring technological solutions, a radical departure from the cloak-and-dagger operations that defined their early successes. The underlying philosophy was simple, yet profound: survival through innovation. Early attempts to leverage nascent technology were crude, often born of desperation. Modified radio receivers, rudimentary encryption devices, and repurposed communication equipment formed the backbone of these initial forays. They were clumsy, prone to failure, and often yielded less than satisfactory results. Then came the incident, a stark, brutal reminder of their technological deficit. A critical intelligence failure, stemming from the inability to intercept and decrypt a specific communication network, led to a devastating surprise attack. Lives were lost, and national security was severely compromised. It was a harrowing moment that seared into the collective consciousness of the Mossad leadership. Human bravery, while essential, was no longer enough. The battlefield of the future, they realized, would be fought not just with bullets and bombs, but with information and bytes. This pivotal failure ignited an intense internal debate. On one side stood the traditionalists, seasoned agents who championed the tried-and-true methods of human intelligence, wary of the unproven and unpredictable nature of technology. On the other, a small but vocal faction argued for a radical technological shift, a complete reimagining of their intelligence apparatus. It was in this crucible of doubt and desperation that a charismatic but fiercely pragmatic leader emerged, a man named Eli Cohen, though not the famed spy, but a visionary within the Mossad's nascent strategic planning. He championed the tech-driven vision, seeing it not as a supplement, but as the future core of their operations. Resistance was palpable. Skepticism rippled through the ranks. Many feared that relying on machines would diminish the human element, that the soul of espionage would be lost. But the stakes were too high. National security, the very existence of the young nation, hung precariously in the balance. Cohen, undeterred, pushed forward. A secret committee was quietly formed, its mandate clear: explore the full spectrum of technological integration, no matter how unconventional. Initial budgetary and resource constraints were severe, yet the urgency outweighed these limitations. In a hushed, confidential meeting, held deep within a secure, anonymous building, Cohen unveiled his audacious concept: the development of a silent weapon. Not a weapon of destruction, but one of information, manipulation, and unparalleled intelligence. His impassioned plea resonated with a desperate conviction. He spoke not of replacing agents, but empowering them, giving them unseen eyes and unheard ears. He painted a vivid picture of a future where threats were neutralized before they materialized, where adversaries were outmaneuvered by an invisible hand. In a symbolic moment, the decision was made. Technology would become a core pillar, an equal partner to human intelligence. A small clandestine team was assembled, hand-picked for their unconventional thinking and technical prowess. tasked with pioneering this new, uncharted approach. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, riddled with ethical dilemmas and technical challenges. Would this monumental gamble pay off, securing the nation's future, or would it lead them down a perilous path to unforeseen disaster? Only time would tell. The gamble's success hinged on finding an extraordinary mind, one capable of translating abstract concepts into tangible, operational tools. This quest led Eli Cohen to Dr. Elias Thorne, a brilliant, reclusive engineer whose reputation for unconventional thinking preceded him. Thorne, a man haunted by personal tragedy, the loss of his family and a conflict he believed could have been averted, had grown profoundly disillusioned with traditional warfare, seeing it as an endless cycle of blood and futility. His grief had transmuted into a fierce desire to create a bloodless, decisive weapon, a means to prevent conflict rather than merely respond to it. Cohen, understanding Thorne's unique perspective, sought him out personally. Their initial encounters were fraught with tension, Thorne deeply wary of any military application of his groundbreaking work. He envisioned his creations as tools for societal upliftment, not instruments of espionage or conflict. Cohen, however, was persistent, his argument compelling and carefully tailored. He spoke not of warfare, but of prevention, of leveraging technology to save lives by neutralizing threats before they could manifest. He painted a picture of technology as a shield, not a sword, a silent guardian protecting the innocent. This vision, aligning with Thorne's deeply held convictions, slowly chipped away at the engineer's reluctance. Thorne's past research, spanning covert communication protocols and sophisticated signal manipulation, made him an invaluable asset. He possessed an almost intuitive understanding of exploiting vulnerabilities in the rapidly emerging global technological landscape, seeing patterns and possibilities others missed. Once convinced, Thorne dedicated himself entirely to the project. The birthplace of what would eventually be codenamed Ghost was a nondescript building, deliberately chosen for its anonymity, nestled in an unassuming industrial park. Within its reinforced walls, a diverse team was painstakingly assembled under Thorne's leadership. Hackers with unparalleled digital dexterity, cryptographers who spoke in algorithms, visionary engineers capable of building the impossible, and even psychologists who understood the human element of deception and influence. A culture of extreme secrecy and stringent compartmentalization was immediately established, each member aware only of their specific piece of the puzzle, never the full picture. The early days were a whirlwind of intense intellectual effort, marked by both exhilarating breakthroughs and frustrating setbacks. Hours blurred into days as the team toiled, driven by Thorne's relentless pursuit of perfection and the unspoken imperative of national survival. They were crafting their first tool, a device designed to penetrate and analyze adversary networks without leaving a trace. The pressure was immense, a constant hum beneath the surface of their focused concentration. Unbeknownst to them, a rival intelligence agency, sensing ripples of unusual activity, unknowingly began to probe the periphery of Thorne's work, creating a subtle but palpable tension within the hidden facility. This external pressure only intensified the team's resolve. Amidst this clandestine struggle, they achieved a significant milestone, the first prototype of a groundbreaking surveillance device capable of unprecedented data acquisition. Yet, even in triumph, ethical dilemmas arose. Thorne and his team grappled with the implications of their power, the fine line between intelligence gathering and outright manipulation, the potential for privacy breaches on an unimaginable scale. These were not mere technical challenges, but profound moral quandaries. A critical test of the prototype was conducted in a meticulously controlled environment, simulating a real-world scenario. The initial success was undeniable, the device performing beyond all expectations, but it also revealed unforeseen complications in its interaction with complex dynamic systems. Cohen, the pragmatic leader, remained an unwavering pillar of support, shielding the project from bureaucratic interference and providing the resources needed to overcome each obstacle. A growing, almost palpable belief permeated the team. They were crafting something truly revolutionary, a capability that would redefine the very nature of intelligence. The immense power they were beginning to wield was becoming increasingly apparent. It was during these intense periods of development that the internal code name Ghost was coined, a perfect reflection of its stealth, its pervasive nature, and its ability to operate unseen. The culmination of their initial efforts arrived with the first successful, albeit small-scale, deployment of a Ghost tool. It targeted a minor yet persistent communication network of a low-level extremist group. The operation was flawless, leaving the adversaries utterly perplexed. Their communications mysteriously scrambled, their plans subtly derailed, without any discernible cause. The Ghost had begun to stir. The whisper of the Ghost had indeed begun, and its next target would be far more significant. The Mossad leadership, emboldened by the initial, small-scale success, decided it was time for a major operational test, disrupting the communications of a prominent terrorist network led by a charismatic and elusive figure known only as the Serpent. This man commanded a highly decentralized organization, one that prided itself on its technological savvy and its ability to evade conventional intelligence efforts. The Serpent's network was a hydra, seemingly impervious to direct attack, its communications a tangled web of encrypted messages and constantly shifting frequencies. Thorne's team, now operating with a heightened sense of purpose, deployed a new form of data interception and manipulation, a sophisticated evolution of their initial prototype. This wasn't merely eavesdropping. It was an active, insidious penetration, designed to sow confusion and distrust from within. The operation unfolded with chilling precision, a digital ballet choreographed by Thorne and his brilliant engineers. Messages were subtly altered, rendezvous points subtly shifted, and critical pieces of information were selectively delayed or even fabricated, creating a labyrinth of misinformation for the Serpent's operatives. Mossad field agents, who had initially harbored skepticism about the Ghost's ethereal capabilities, were astounded by the intelligence suddenly flowing into their hands. They observed the Serpent's network descend into disarray, its carefully laid plans unraveling without any discernible trace of conventional intervention. The Serpent himself, a man renowned for his cunning and foresight, grew increasingly paranoid. His trusted lieutenants began to suspect one another, their internal communications rife with accusations and counter-accusations, all subtly fueled by the Ghost's unseen hand. During one particularly delicate phase of the operation, a near miss threatened to expose their digital footprint. A new, sophisticated counter-surveillance protocol deployed by the Serpent's tech wing almost detected the Ghost's presence. It was Thorne's quick thinking, his instantaneous analysis of the threat, and his decisive, almost intuitive, recalibration of their digital signature that averted disaster. This incident, though terrifyingly close, solidified his team's trust and admiration for him, reinforcing his indispensable role. The Mossad leader, observing the profound impact of the Ghost's silent war, recognized the immense potential for strategic advantage. The Serpent's growing frustration, born from the inexplicable failures of his operations, led to a brutal internal purge within his ranks. Key figures were eliminated, suspected of betrayal or incompetence, further weakening his already fractured organization. The Ghost technology, learning and adapting from each interaction, was refined continuously, becoming even more sophisticated, more elusive, and harder to detect. Yet, amidst this unprecedented success, the moral implications of silent warfare began to weigh on some team members. The ethical lines blurred, the distinction between protecting national security and manipulating global events becoming increasingly difficult to discern. After the successful disruption of the Serpent's network, a quiet celebration ensued. But Thorne remained pensive, his gaze distant, burdened by the immense power he now wielded. The world remained utterly oblivious to this new form of warfare being waged in the shadows. The Serpent, however, began to suspect an unseen enemy, a force beyond his comprehension, though he could never pinpoint its true nature. The Mossad's global influence subtly increased, their new capabilities allowing them to preempt threats and shape outcomes with unparalleled efficiency. The team even began developing predictive algorithms based on the vast amounts of intercepted data, attempting to forecast future threats before they even fully materialized. The line between intelligence gathering and active manipulation had not just blurred, it had all but vanished. A high-stakes meeting was convened, where the Mossad leadership grappled with the ethical boundaries of their newfound power. Debates raged, some arguing for aggressive preemption, others for cautious restraint. The sheer efficacy of the Ghost was undeniable, but its moral cost was a growing concern. The Serpent, pushed to the brink, attempted a desperate last stand, a complex, multi-pronged attack designed to reclaim his lost prestige. But the Ghost was already there, anticipating every move, subtly rerouting his resources, exposing his operatives, and ultimately dismantling his entire operation before it could even begin. He was left utterly defeated, bewildered by an unseen digital hand, his once formidable network reduced to ashes, without a single shot fired. The Mossad's profound success with the Ghost technology, particularly its silent dismantling of the formidable Serpent network, inadvertently cast a long shadow, drawing the unwanted gaze of a truly colossal entity. Across the globe, amidst the sprawling digital empires of the world's most powerful nations, a rival intelligence agency, ominously known as the Leviathan, began to detect anomalies. Their vast, interconnected networks, designed to monitor global digital traffic, registered inexplicable disruptions, patterns of data manipulation, and the sudden, silent collapse of adversarial elements that defied conventional explanation. The Leviathan's top analysts, initially perplexed, started investigating the source of these recent, unsettling occurrences. Within the secluded confines of the Ghost project, Thorne and his team immediately sensed the shift. The digital ether, once a relatively clear hunting ground, now pulsed with the faint yet unmistakable probing tendrils of a vastly superior cyber presence. This was no mere terrorist cell or rogue state actor. This was a global behemoth, meticulously searching, analyzing, and attempting to unravel the mystery of their silent weapon. A digital cat-and-mouse game of unprecedented scale had begun, forcing Thorne's team to dedicate an ever-increasing portion of their resources to maintaining their meticulously crafted secrecy. The pressure mounted daily, a suffocating blanket of apprehension settling over the usually vibrant lab. The Leviathan, frustrated by the elusiveness of their target, assigned their most brilliant and ruthless operative, a figure known only as Agent X, to the burgeoning enigma. Agent X was a legend within the intelligence community, a cybernetic prodigy with an almost supernatural ability to sift through digital chaos and find the single telling thread. They began their meticulous work, piecing together fragments of evidence from seemingly disparate global incidents, slowly constructing a profile of an unseen, technologically advanced entity. Agent X's initial suspicion, a chilling intuition, pointed towards a technological rather than human adversary, a ghost in the machine. Internal conflict within the Mossad leadership flared. Some, emboldened by the Ghost's prior successes, advocated for aggressive countermeasures, believing offense to be the best defense. Others, more cautious, urged restraint, fearing that a direct confrontation with the Leviathan would expose their most valuable asset prematurely. Thorne, ever the pragmatist, expressed profound concerns about the escalating digital arms race they were unwittingly igniting. He gravely warned that their silent weapon, designed to prevent bloodshed, was now inadvertently pushing the world closer to a new, unseen conflict. Then a critical vulnerability was discovered. Deep within one of Ghost's older foundational modules, a subtle flaw, a barely perceptible crack in the digital armor, was identified. It was a legacy piece of code, overlooked in the rapid pace of innovation, now presenting a catastrophic risk. The race against time began, a frantic scramble to patch the vulnerability before Agent X, whose probing was growing ever more precise, could exploit it. The air in the Ghost lab crackled with tension, every keystroke a prayer. A devastating blow struck from within. A disgruntled former team member, one who had felt overshadowed and undervalued in the shadow of Thorne's genius, leaked a cryptic clue to Agent X. It wasn't the full blueprint, but it was enough. A breadcrumb trail leading directly towards the heart of the Ghost project. This act of betrayal forced Thorne to make an agonizing decision. To protect the core of the project, he had to compromise a lesser, but still vital, covert operation, shifting resources and attention away from the leak, hoping to misdirect Agent X. Agent X, armed with the cryptic clue, closed in with terrifying speed, narrowing down the geographical location of the Ghost project to a specific region. The Mossad leader faced a burgeoning political crisis, as the Leviathan, now confident in their pursuit, escalated their diplomatic pressure, demanding answers about the unexplained digital events. Thorne's team worked around the clock, fueled by caffeine and an almost desperate sense of duty, battling exhaustion and the gnawing moral fatigue that came with their secret war. They realized with chilling clarity that their silent weapon, once their ultimate shield, could also be turned against them, a double-edged sword poised to sever their very existence. A tense, silent digital confrontation erupted, a high-stakes cyber battle between Thorne's team and Agent X's elite cyber unit. Firewalls clashed, encryption layers were tested to their breaking point, and digital traps were sprung and evaded in a ballet of ones and zeros. The Ghost Project's existence hung by a thread, almost exposed to the world. In the end, Agent X obtained a critical piece of encrypted data, a tantalizing glimpse into the Ghost's capabilities, but crucially, not the key to unlock its true secrets. The immediate threat was contained, but the larger danger, the looming specter of the Leviathan's relentless pursuit, remained, a cold, hard truth that settled deep in Thorne's weary bones. The revelation of the betrayal, a venomous whisper in the digital halls of the Ghost Project, shook Thorne's team to its very core. The carefully cultivated trust, the unspoken camaraderie forged in countless late nights and high-stakes operations, shattered into 1,000 pieces. The identity of the traitor, though not officially confirmed, was narrowed down to a former colleague, Dr. Eris, a brilliant but volatile mind who had once been a pivotal part of the early Ghost development. Eris had felt sidelined, his contributions overshadowed by Thorne's increasingly dominant vision, fostering a bitter resentment that festered into a dangerous defiance. His motivations, Thorne deduced with a heavy heart, were a toxic cocktail of a thirst for recognition and a deeply misguided belief that Thorne's project, for all its preventative power, was simply too dangerous, too potent for any single entity to wield. Thorne felt personally wounded, a deep ache in his chest that transcended professional disappointment. Aris had not merely been a colleague, he had been a close friend, a confidant with whom Thorne had shared dreams of a safer world built on silent innovation. The Mossad leadership, understanding the catastrophic implications of an internal leak, immediately ordered a silent, untraceable hunt for Aris, a clandestine operation designed to retrieve the compromised data and neutralize the threat without exposing the existence of the Ghost Project to the wider world. Unbeknownst to them, Aris, now operating from the shadows, had aligned himself with a shadowy private military corporation, a conglomerate known for its aggressive cyber capabilities and dubious ethics. He had already begun the painstaking process of reverse engineering parts of the leaked data, leveraging his intimate knowledge of Ghost's architecture. The team, still reeling from the shock, raced against time to understand the full extent of the damage Eris had inflicted. Their worst fears were soon realized. A critical system used for covert operations, one that coordinated field agents across multiple continents, had been compromised. This put countless lives at risk, transforming the digital betrayal into a very real, tangible threat to human lives. Thorne grappled with the agonizing ethical dilemma of neutralizing Eris, a man who had once been like family. The lines between duty and personal anguish blurred, creating an internal conflict that gnawed at his resolve. The Mossad leader, sensing Thorne's struggle, reinforced the stark necessity of protecting the Ghost at all costs. The project was not just a collection of algorithms and code, it was the nation's silent guardian, and its integrity was paramount. With a heavy heart, Thorne began to orchestrate Eris's downfall. A digital trap was meticulously laid, a complex web woven from Eris's own leaked code, designed to exploit his familiarity with the system against him. Every line of code Thorne wrote felt like a betrayal of their shared past, each command a nail in the coffin of their friendship. The emotional toll on Thorne was immense, a crushing weight of responsibility and regret. Eris, brilliant but blinded by his resentment, eventually realized he had been outmaneuvered. Cornered and desperate, he made a last-ditch, reckless attempt to expose the Ghost Project to the world, threatening to unleash its secrets onto public forums and dark web channels. The Mossad acted with brutal efficiency, containing the information before it could truly spread. But the chilling threat of exposure, of their silent weapon being laid bare, lingered like a shadow. In a final, poignant exchange, Thorn confronted Eris in a secure digital environment, a virtual meeting place where their broken bond could finally be acknowledged. Eris, defiant even in defeat, articulated his belief that he had been doing the right thing, trying to prevent a technological dystopia where unseen hands controlled global events. Thorn, his voice thick with profound sadness, could only convey the devastating consequences of Eris's choices. The silence that followed was deafening, a testament to their broken friendship. With a single decisive command, Thorn initiated the final protocol, and Eris's digital footprint was completely erased, vanishing without a trace. Thorn was left with the heavy burden of his choices, and the chilling thought that internal threats, born from disillusioned minds and broken trusts, were the most dangerous of all. The Mossad, now wielding the formidable Ghost technology with unmatched proficiency, ascended to an unprecedented position of dominance within the clandestine world of intelligence. Its predictive capabilities, honed through years of meticulous refinement and countless successful operations, allowed it to preempt a staggering number of threats, silently averting crises and saving untold lives across the globe. The world, largely oblivious to the unseen hand guiding its course, experienced a period of unusual geopolitical calm, a deceptive tranquility unknowingly orchestrated and influenced by the silent reach of the Ghost. Within the secure confines of their hidden complex, Thorn's team continued its relentless pursuit of innovation. They pushed the boundaries of what was technologically possible, developing advanced AI-driven intelligence analysis systems that could sift through oceans of data, identifying patterns and predicting intentions with terrifying accuracy. The Mossad leader, now a revered figure both within the agency and among a select few international counterparts, grew increasingly reliant on Thorn's profound insights and the Ghost's unparalleled foresight. His trust in Thorn was absolute, born from years of witnessing the silent weapon's undeniable efficacy. However, the constant, pervasive use of Ghost began to subtly, almost imperceptibly, alter global dynamics in ways even Thorn had not fully anticipated. Small, seemingly insignificant interventions designed to neutralize threats or influence outcomes accumulated over time, cascading into significant geopolitical shifts. Nations found themselves steered away from conflict, economies subtly nudged towards stability, all without ever understanding the true architect of their changing fortunes. A growing internal concern began to manifest within Thorn's dedicated team. They were acutely aware of the immense, unchecked power they wielded, a power that could reshape destinies with a few lines of code. The question of accountability, a moral quandary that had simmered beneath the surface since the project's inception, now began to demand an answer. Who ultimately oversaw the Ghost? Who decided where its silent hand would reach and where it would refrain? This burgeoning ethical debate was further fueled by the emergence of a new, more aggressive faction within the Mossad's upper echelons. Emboldened by Ghost's undeniable successes, this faction pushed for increasingly proactive interventions, advocating for the technology to be deployed not merely to react, but to actively shape the global landscape according to their strategic objectives. Thorn, ever the pragmatist and moral compass of the project, argued vehemently for restraint, fearing the perilous, slippery slope of technological overreach. He understood that the more they manipulated, the more they risked unintended consequences, creating a world dependent on their unseen governance. The Mossad leader found himself caught in a profound crisis of conscience. He was torn between the absolute imperative of national security, which Ghost so effectively guaranteed, and the increasingly blurry ethical boundaries that its operations traversed. The weight of his decisions pressed heavily upon him, knowing that the choices he made would echo through history, shaping the very nature of covert warfare. Just as this internal struggle reached its zenith, a new, formidable global cyber threat emerged from the digital ether. This entity, a sophisticated state-sponsored operation, was dubbed Chimera. It was unlike anything Ghost had encountered before, exhibiting a chilling level of sophistication and a disturbing familiarity with advanced cyber warfare techniques. Worse still, Chimera showed undeniable signs of having reverse-engineered parts of Eris's leaked data, leveraging the very vulnerabilities he had exposed. The Ghost project, for the first time, faced its greatest external challenge, a truly peer-level adversary that could match its digital prowess. Thorn realized with a chilling certainty that the silent weapon he had painstakingly created had inadvertently birthed a new kind of war, an unseen, unending conflict waged in the shadows of the Internet. The first major digital skirmish between Ghost and Chimera erupted, a clash of titans where algorithms battled algorithms, and firewalls crumbled under relentless assaults. It was a brutal, silent ballet of digital destruction, pushing both sides to their absolute limits. In a harrowing moment that sent shockwaves through Thorn's team, a major Ghost system was briefly compromised by Chimera, a stark, terrifying revelation of the vulnerability of even the most advanced silent weapon. The impenetrable had been breached and the world held its breath, unaware of the digital storm brewing just beneath the surface. The breach by Chimera reverberated through the Mossad like an earthquake, shaking the very foundations of their technological superiority. Thorn, his face etched with exhaustion and self-reproach, bore the weight of the compromise. He blamed himself, a silent accusation echoing in his mind, convinced that his creation, meant to prevent conflict, had instead escalated the cyber war to an unprecedented, dangerous level. The Mossad leader, already navigating a treacherous political landscape, now faced intense pressure from international allies, their voices a chorus of demands for answers regarding the global digital instability. The world, unaware of the clandestine struggle, felt the tremors as Chimera began to actively disrupt global infrastructure, demonstrating its formidable power with calculated, unsettling precision. Financial markets flickered, communication networks sputtered, and critical services experienced inexplicable outages. The digital Cold War, once a theoretical threat, was now a stark, terrifying reality, pushing humanity to the brink of a new kind of conflict. Thorn's team, driven by a mixture of panic and fierce determination, worked frantically, their minds racing to counteract Chimera's relentless assaults and plug the vulnerabilities that had been so brutally exposed. The moral and emotional toll on each member reached its peak. Sleepless nights blurred into days, fueled by caffeine and an unyielding sense of urgency. The lines between right and wrong, once so clear, had become irrevocably blurred in the fog of this unseen war. Thorn, staring at lines of malicious code that mirrored his own brilliance, came to a chilling realization. The only way to truly disarm Chimera was not to defeat its algorithms, but to expose its creators, to tear back the veil of anonymity that protected its state sponsors. He began to formulate a daring, high-risk plan, a digital gambit that would leverage Ghost's full capabilities, not for stealth, but for revelation. His proposal was audacious: to use Ghost to meticulously trace Chimera's digital fingerprints back to its source, to unmask the nations pulling the strings. The Mossad leader initially resisted, his face pale with apprehension. He envisioned the global repercussions, the diplomatic firestorm, the potential for open conflict that such an exposure would inevitably ignite. The leader feared the world was not ready for such transparency, fearing it would shatter the fragile peace Ghost had so carefully maintained. But Thorn, his voice low but filled with an unwavering conviction, made an impassioned plea. He argued that true peace, a lasting peace, could only be built upon transparency, even if that transparency was painful, even if it exposed uncomfortable truths about global power dynamics. He painted a grim picture of a future where nations waged silent, destructive wars, leaving the world in perpetual chaos, its citizens unwitting casualties. Seeing the escalating global chaos, the leader, with a heavy heart and a grim nod, reluctantly agreed to Thorn's audacious plan. The operation was launched, a complex, multi-layered digital attack designed not to destroy, but to illuminate. Ghost unleashed its full arsenal of analytical tools, its predictive algorithms, and its deep learning networks, all focused on a single objective, the unmasking of Chimera. Chimera retaliated fiercely, its digital counterattacks pushing Ghost to its absolute limits, threatening to overwhelm its defenses. In a critical moment, Thorn made a personal sacrifice, diverting a crucial defensive subroutine to a vulnerable access point, knowing it would expose his own digital signature, but ensuring the data stream for the exposure payload remained secure. It was a calculated risk, putting himself directly in the line of fire to ensure success. The identity of Chimera's state sponsors was revealed, a cascade of encrypted data unfurling across global intelligence networks, confirming the Mossad's suspicions and sending shockwaves through the international community. The revelation caused a massive international uproar, a cacophony of condemnation and outrage. The immediate aftermath was a scramble for diplomatic solutions, a desperate attempt to contain the fallout from this unprecedented exposure. Thorn, exhausted but resolute, watched the news unfold, realizing the true immense cost of wielding such power. The world now grappled with the stark, undeniable reality of invisible warfare, forever changed by the silent weapon and the reckoning it had forced upon them. The global fallout from Chimera's exposure proved to be a watershed moment, ushering in a new, albeit tumultuous, era of international relations. The stark reality of invisible warfare, once a whispered fear, was now laid bare for all to see. Nations, forced to confront the pervasive nature of digital conflict, began the arduous process of drafting cyber warfare treaties and establishing unprecedented regulations. The world, through this painful awakening, acknowledged the existence of silent weapons and the urgent, undeniable need for international oversight. The pretense of ignorance was shattered, replaced by a grudging acceptance of a new, complex battleground. Thorn, now a figure of profound significance, emerged from the crucible of the Chimera crisis, weary but universally respected. His quiet demeanor belied the immense burden he carried, the weight of lives saved and the unintended consequences of his creations. He became an unlikely, yet powerful, advocate for ethical artificial intelligence and the responsible use of advanced technology, touring international forums and quietly influencing policymakers. His message was simple, yet profound. Power without accountability was a recipe for disaster. The Mossad, too, underwent a significant and necessary restructuring. The raw, unbridled power of the Ghost Project had demanded a new level of transparency and accountability for its technological division. No longer could such a potent force operate in the shadows without internal checks and balances. The Ghost Project itself was not dismantled, for its defensive capabilities remained vital in a world still grappling with digital threats. Instead, it was transformed, its immense power harnessed primarily for defensive purposes and, remarkably, for international cooperation. The very tool that had once been a harbinger of silent war now served as a bulwark against it, its algorithms shared with trusted allies to fortify global digital defenses. The Mossad leader who had guided the organization through this seismic shift had witnessed the full, terrifying spectrum of Ghost's impact. From its clandestine inception to its world-altering revelation, he had borne the responsibility of its deployment. With a quiet dignity, he stepped down, leaving behind a complex legacy of both unparalleled innovation and a profound, hard-won caution. His tenure marked a pivotal moment where technological might met moral introspection. Thorn, in the quiet solitude of his reflections, pondered his own future. He saw the countless lives saved by Ghost's preemptive strikes, the terror plots foiled, the conflicts averted. But he also saw the deep scars left by the unintended consequences, the digital arms race he had inadvertently accelerated, the ethical dilemmas that had plagued his every decision. He recognized that his genius, while instrumental in defense, had also contributed to the very landscape of invisible warfare he now sought to mitigate. Driven by this profound realization, Thorn embarked on a new initiative. It was a bold departure from his past, focused on leveraging technology for global good rather than covert operations. He envisioned a world where predictive analytics could combat pandemics, where AI could optimize resource distribution, and where advanced communication systems could bridge cultural divides. His final scene found him in a brightly lit laboratory, far removed from the clandestine bunkers of the past. He stood before a new generation of eager, brilliant engineers, their faces alight with curiosity and idealism. He spoke not of weapons or espionage, but of connection, of understanding, of the immense potential of human ingenuity coupled with ethical foresight. He emphasized the paramount importance of the human element in technology, reminding them that tools were only as good as the intentions of those who wielded them. The silent weapon, the ghost that had once haunted the digital shadows, had not disappeared. It had merely evolved. Its purpose had transformed, its stealth now employed not for clandestine strikes, but for vigilant guardianship. The lingering, profound question remained, echoing in the quiet hum of the servers. Could humanity truly control the power it created? Yet, there was a palpable sense of hope for the future, a hope tempered by the hard-learned lessons of the past. The continuing struggle to balance security with freedom in an ever-advancing technological world was far from over, but a new path had been forged. Thorne's ultimate redemption lay in this renewed vision, using technology to build bridges, to foster understanding, and to protect, not just to project power. The final image was of the Ghost logo, subtly altered, its spectral outline now less menacing, more protective, symbolizing its metamorphosis from a weapon of stealth to a guardian of peace, an omnipresent, silent, and watchful presence in a world forever changed.